Pucks in a micro away from the pros, focusing on stalkers one by one.
Coming in from every single angle. There's a time warp, but look at this concave, this crescent moon.
The fight. This is what's going to happen now. The supply goes in Hug's favor.
He's just gonna barrel through, take out whatever. So much bile here coming towards.
Looking like Nesty is going to take it here.
Dancing the roaches a little bit. Scarlet. Now the Hydra's are exposed. Those Vita's going to die, and it's only going to make that much of a difference. GG.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're live from New York City. This is the second to last day of WCS America Season 1. I'm axeltoss, joined by axslav. There's 4 spots left in Premier League Season 2. That's $6,000. Did I do the math right? Minimum.
Expected value is probably more like $20,000.
And
but
not
minimum
to mention
earnings.
the fame.
The fame and the WCS points for BlizzCon,
The
which
girls,
of course...
like, how do you value all this stuff? Basically, you want to be in Premier League Season 2. And to kind of remind you guys of the format, we got groups of 4 in the Challenger League group stage right now. Top 2 advance. Standard format we've been doing. Double elimination stuff. We got the 4 players play each other, and we have a winner's match, loser's match, and then a final match at the end. Basically, don't lose twice is the key idea. Of course, yesterday, let's discuss what happened. A very unique day.
Exactly. A
Yeah.
lot of 2-0s, man. A lot of 2-0s. There were a couple close matches in there, though. Neeb vs. Tasia Game 2 was, I think, the match of the night. A very exciting match between those two guys. Of course, you can check out all those. YouTube.com. That's official OMGSC2.
If I had to make a suggestion, I really enjoyed Hello Kitty vs. Maker Game 2 on Cloud Kingdom.
That was pretty funny.
That was I enjoyed
funny.
myself watching that one. So definitely check that out.
Kind of back and forth in a way.
It was. We definitely discussed that a lot. But that happened yesterday. Again, we're live here every day, 6 p.m. Eastern. Today, though, we got a special treat for you. Halloween has come early. We got 4 amazing players involved in this group: Jim, Drunkenboi, Ian, and Jaedong. And it's all live matches. We're going to be starting off with Jim versus Drunkenboi. And I'm pretty excited for this group. 2 Zergs, a Terran, and Protoss. You got a little bit of everything here.
That's true. That's true. A little bit of every race represented. Also, we have some legends in the group today. Jaedong, the Brood War Tyrant. Of course, he's in here because he lost to Theognis. Theognis did the whole thing where he dressed up in the flags and the represented freedom.
The glasses, he tweeted about it. That was awesome.
It was pretty crazy. And, of course, he took Jaedong down the Challenger League bracket, and that's why Theognis is already in Premier League. Jaedong, of course, has got to make it through this group stage. He's got to get top 2. We're not going to see him in the Premier League. And what an upset that would be to not have Jaedong in the Premier League.
It would be a huge upset. I know a lot of people are watching for that. But first, we're going to have Jim versus Drunkenboi. The players in the lobby and the players are ready. I'm going to hit the start game button. Super excited for the first match of the evening. Of course, Jim, one of those Protoss players who was on top of the Korean ladder a few times. Quite a few times. Hails from China. Really good playing again. Drunkenboi, one of the up-and-coming American players. We're going to talk all about it. First map is going to be on Neo Planet S, Protoss versus Terran. Of course, a change went through today, Mr. Axslav. You woke me up in the morning, and you're so excited about it. About the War Prism. Getting a little bit faster.
We'll have to see, how prepared Jim is for that, because it literally just happened just a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
Of course, it was on a test map for a little while before then. So, but most pros never play the test maps because they want to focus on the game that's going to be used in the current tournament situation. So we'll have to see how big of a role that plays today.
All right, here we are on Neo Planet S. In the bottom left-hand location, I present to you your red Protoss player hailing from China, representing Team Invictus Gaming. He is Jim. Of course, you know what's really unique about this group? None of these players have been in WCS America Premier League. This is true. They all came through the Challenger League qualifier.
None of them are from the United States either.
Except, Drunken was Canadian, isn't he?
Exactly.
You're right.
We've got Taiwan. And they're all from different countries.
Yes.
We have a Chinese, a Korean, a Taiwanese, and a Canadian.
Lots of diversity here in WCS America. Of course, Jim took out Oz 2-1. Took out Vibe 2-0 before falling to Scarlet 1-2. get to this point. His opponent in the top right-hand location of Neoplanet S. Your blue Terran player representing Team FXO North America, hailing from Canada. He is Drunkenboi. Drunkenboi lost in his first round of his Challenger League bracket to State, which isn't that bad, all things considered.
No.
State is really good. State's actually, I think he's at Home Story Cup right now.
He is. He did get 4th in that tournament. He actually got 2nd in STARCRAFT America. Yeah,
oh,
no,
yeah.
sorry, 4th in the tournament to qualify for Home Story Cup.
Yep.
He got 2nd in STARCRAFT America. And when he tried to qualify for Home Story Cup, he went up against Kane, who of course beat him in the finals of STARCRAFT America.
And he beat him.
He beat Kane to make the top 4. Of course, top 3 qualified, but then you know, I think Katz couldn't make it, so he was able to take Katz's spot.
He was also in Challenger League group 2 days ago, I think.
Yes.
And he wasn't able to qualify for Premier League.
It was close though. He got 3rd. He lost 1-2 to top in the final match, I believe.
But anyway, the whole point of talking about State is that Drunkenboi lost to State, and that's not a terrible loss considering State is really freaking good. But let's see what happens here. I mean, we got the Canadian versus of course, the Chinese player. And again, Jim is a player who's been up there. He's had that experience. He's been up there on the Korean ladder, playing at like a super high level. So I'll have to see how Drunkenboi approaches this. That's how I'm going to be really interested to see. I feel like Jim, he played very standard, right? He's going to be the guy who's going to be willing to push this to the mid game, to the late game. On a map like Neoplanet S, it gets a little bit interesting because the 3rd is always going to be a little bit questionable.
It is, and many Protoss players like to veto this map for that reason.
Yeah.
But the one thing about Jim and about pretty much almost every Chinese player I've seen play is they tend to be very aggressive in their style of play. They love trying to be in their opponent's face early. They love trying to make the engagements happen because where they really excel is in a micromanagement of units. These guys are often just super spot on with the force fields, the blink micro, and not to mention, you know, Colossi focus firing, stutter stepping, storm micro, all these micromanagement aspects.
Yeah.
And the way to make the game about the micromanagement is to be aggressive. Because if you're aggressive, you know that you can decide, okay, let's make it about engagements. If you're defensive, your opponent might start making it about multitasking, about harass, about compositions. So if you want to be able to control the pace of the game, you've got to be aggressive.
Reaper approaching, not jumping up there. Going to try to wrap around. There's a Stalker on the high ground. Reaper coming up here, but he's going to get out of this. So he's not going to be able to scout any potential tech. Now, Jim delaying his tech a little bit. Okay, no. Throwing down the Stargate at the back there. Interesting. So, you know, it smells like Oracle. That's usually going to be the first unit you're going to build out of that Stargate. Just force your opponent to build some turrets, get some scouting information done, and then you have detection a little bit later should you need it. Little bit surprised. I'm like passively surprised he didn't go for a Twilight Council. I feel like, you know, that's more his style as far as getting the blink out and getting that mobility, trying to potentially contain your opponent a little bit. In Neoplanet S, I feel like is a pretty darn good blink map. But the Stargate, you know, I'm not disappointed with it at all. We'll have to see what he does with this.
He's going to get that Oracle first out, and of course, Drunkenboi is going for that Widowmine drop. And the way Oracle plays up versus Widowmine drop is very interesting because the Terran takes all their Widowmines for the drop, doesn't leave any behind. Sometimes the Oracle can get a lot of damage done. But of course, if the Terran can identify that there's an Oracle on the field, and I believe Drunkenboi's Reaper did scout that Stargate just about a minute ago. So he's probably going to leave, you know, one Widowmine in each of his merit lines. That will deflect the Oracle harass. But again, the Oracle doesn't necessarily need to do a lot of damage. It just really wants to scout, and it really wants to not die. So can Jim identify where the Widowmines are and avoid running into them with that Oracle?
One Widowmine, 6 Marines inside a medevac that's heading across the map. 2 Hellions lurking in the darkness, waiting for Jim to be distracted and then the likely strike in the natural expansion of his opponent. We have a turret going down at the natural here, Drunkenboi, but the Oracle is on the way. Here comes the drop into the main. Jim's Mothership Core is in his natural expansion, so the Widowmine is going to be able to get burrowed down to the ground. The Marines dropping down as well to distract those shots, and the Widowmine is there. Jim has to be very careful not to take too much damage, and here come the Hellions into the natural expansion. Meanwhile, the Oracle not doing much at all on Drunkenboi's side of the map.
Turret timing was perfect there, got up just in time to affect the Oracle, but on the other hand, Jim's defense was very solid as well.
Nice, that Widowmine was barely in range of that Photon overcharge. We're able to take that out. Marines still being annoying here on the high ground. 2 Hellions, one's going to get taken out, one's going to speed away. Oh, I thought he was going to pick him up in the medevac and potentially drop in the main base. But for now, just being annoying there on the high ground. And I think Jim's just trying to zone this out a little bit. Doesn't want that medevac leaving.
I mean, the gateway can take some damage. Oh no, the Mothership Core!
Oh!
Oh my god, it almost had 100 energy too. He's going to have to remake that. A little bit of miscontrol there. Focusing on the Oracle, it looks like only 1 kill on that Oracle though. And for now, I feel like this is going, you know, I was going to say Drunkenboi's doing okay, but then Jim still has like a pretty substantial supply advantage at this point.
He does. You know what's really interesting there is if we take a look at workers kill, right? Drunkenboi killed 5, Jim only killed 2, but behind that, the multitasking of Jim was insane. He never missed a beat on the probe production, whereas Drunkenboi missed about 5 or 6 SCVs as far as just production timing.
That
so
Harvester tab.
yeah, he's definitely behind in Harvesters. If in this situation, the Protoss, oh, nice little Widowmine hit there. If nobody loses anything, the Protoss is up by about 7 probes at this point in the game. And so the fact that he lost more probes than his opponent lost SCVs and he's still up by 11, that really indicates that there's just the macro of Jim is truly exceptional. And it shows. I mean, this guy was #1 on the Korean Grandmaster ladder for a time, and he's still very high up there. So this is not a guy who you really want to go up against and try to beat him mechanically.
Yeah, crazy amount of probes already on the field here from Jim. His natural might be a little bit oversaturated compared to his main. 24 is natural, only 16 in his main base, so I'd like to see him transfer a little bit over to his main, but continuing to make those probes. So, you know, this tells us, obviously, he's going to be looking to take a third base. However, Drunkenboi had those Hellions there, able to snipe that probe, so Jim's going to have to work a little harder to get a potential third base on the ground.
And Drunkenboi was cutting SCVs for a while, but just now adding 2 more in addition to that third orbital. So it's not clear if Drunkenboi wants to just stay on you know, a very low SCV count, or if he only wants to crank him up into high gear. He is adding more barracks, so he is going to go, of course, a very heavy Bioforce. Has he identified the Phoenix Colossi composition yet? That's the key thing.
I think he should have an idea, yes. The
Oh,
drop
he's
is
gonna see it
happening
now.
at the natural. Sees the Robobay. The Phoenix is going to take some shots at this medevac. I think it already used the Ignite Afterburner, so he's going to have to wait for that cooldown to finish up. Dropping the Marines. If you can get a Phoenix here, that'd be good. But the medevac getting up barely with 14 HP.
And now that he's identified the fact it's Phoenix Colossi, a lot of Terrans, as soon as they see this, immediately put down that second starport, really crank out the Viking production. Drunkenboi seems to be favoring just going for more of the ground units, but there's a lot of sentries on the field for Jim.
This is scary. The pylon, he already has a forward pylon. Jim does, and his opponent's potential third. Already warping in units across the map. When you're doing a timing as Protoss, it's so important to hit as fast as possible, take your opponent completely off guard. Jim was set up perfectly there, but deciding to back up. Looks like some Hellions are being annoying in his main base. He's going to pick those up with the Phoenixes, and he's going to pull this army back, but still no third base, which is kind of confusing me a little.
It is. I think it's kind of just the map. And you know, Jim's just afraid this map is big. He doesn't have really that strong of an army. I mean, he's very far ahead in food, but he doesn't know he's that far ahead in food because he actually hasn't killed that much at Drunkenboi. And he's probably expecting a much larger army, 140, 150 food army from Drunkenboi at this point in the game. And that's why he's apprehensive, because he only has 2 Colossi. Third Colossus is on the way. I mean, from our standpoint, obviously we can tell it's 30 food ahead, but from his standpoint, the way the game's gone, he really shouldn't have that food advantage, and so he's just playing a little bit more conservatively than of course he would if he could have full vision of course the whole map.
Yeah, I think Drunkenboi's doing the right things here. Adding on the Vikings, adding on another starport. He has 3 medevacs on the field, which is one of those situations where it's kind of fine. I certainly don't have any disagreements with that. I mean, 3 or 4 is generally where you want to be, I feel like. Especially when you know you're going up against a Colossi Phoenix army. We see a drop getting decimated there in the main, and now he might be down to 2 medevacs. So now it's starting to get a little bit shady as far as the medevac count is concerned compared to, you know, his bio army.
Things are really not looking good for Drunkenboi. I mean, Jim's really been ahead in the macro department throughout the game, and then decided to go for that drop where there's nothing else going on in the game against an opponent who has a lot of Phoenix on the field. Is just kind of giving away some more units, and now he's down again by that 30 supply gap. And the important thing is that a lot of his supply is in the Marauders and the Marines. He doesn't have many Hellbats. He's trying to catch up in Viking count, but Jim's army is very sentry heavy.
Yeah.
And if it's this sentry heavy, Marauders and Marines are really going to get sectioned off by force fields.
And then the Colossus can just do all the damage.
They're going to have a party, man. Drunkenboi is going to have to rely on just being able to dominate the air battle. He's got to have way more Vikings than there are Phoenix, or else he's going to be totally run over.
Take out the Phoenix, take out the Colossus, and then swoop in with the Bio. Of course, keeping the Bio away from this Colossus beams is going to be very important. Of course, that's all foreshadowing of what is inevitably to come as far as a major battle is concerned. Throughout this game, Jim playing very patiently. You know, as you said, getting the third a little bit late, kind of staying back on his side of the map, having his Phoenixes posturing around, making sure no drops get out of control. And I really like that approach, especially with how Drunkenboi plays. Usually he's very drop-focused. And if you start losing control of drops out of your Terran opponent, things can get pretty scary, and the game is going to kind of fall out of your control. So I really like the way that Jim is playing this game so far.
If you're playing an opponent, like you mentioned, like Drunkenboi loves that drop play, Jim's defensive approach is super great because it's like you're taking the game a little bit out of your hands, but it's okay if you know your opponent likes to be aggressive. You can just wait and punish them when they do those aggressive options. If you have Phoenix on the field and your opponent overextends, you punish them by getting a bunch of free kills.
Vikings trying to get some volleys off on these Phoenixes and on these Colossi. The Bio staying back. The stim going down here from Drunkenboi, feeling very confident indeed. Time Warp going down. Great force fields here from Jim that we talked about. And the Colossus getting their damage done. Jim is going to be very happy with this engagement. All the Vikings are gone. And there's still so much Protoss here on the map, charging towards Drunken's side.
I mean, this is an absolute slaughter. 3 Colossi still on the ground, plenty of Zealots left. In fact, there's still about 20 force fields left of energy on those sentries. The Colossi were never really in serious danger. Drunkenboi's scrambling to defend, but there's only 4 Vikings being produced, and there's so many Phoenix still on the field. A single bunker is going to try to defend a natural, but with this much Protoss, I don't know what it can do.
I mean, no forward pylon terribly close, but it's not going to matter. Too much stuff there from Jim, and Jim will take the 1-0 advantage here in this best of 3. You know, it's just Jim just showing how he's just a stronger player in that game. I think just more solid play throughout. And then the last engagement was kind of strange. How do you think Drunkenboi could have handled that differently to make it a little bit better?
Honestly, the last engagement, he had no chance.
Yeah.
He just had way less units than his opponent. If you stutter set the Bile perfectly, sometimes it can go well, but there's only 2 medevacs. There's no healing. There's not nearly enough Vikings. You see it. He goes straight for the Colossi, which is the right way to micro. I mean, he microed fine. It's just, you know, it all came down to the early game.
Sure.
He had a great harass, but he missed so much SCV production. And that's fine against certain players. They were playing a guy who's a GM on Korea Ladder. He was #1 GM on Korea Ladder for quite a time. If you miss worker production against this guy, he's going to grab a giant food lead, supply lead. He's going to have a much bigger army. In a small army versus a bigger army, it's very difficult to make that win happen.
Well played there from Jim. He takes the 1-0 advantage in this best of 3. Guys, stay tuned. We got Drunkenboi versus Jim, game 2, coming up.